emotions need to be felt. One of my favorite exercises to working with emotions is an exercise that we got taught by a Buddhist nun called Pema Chodron. And you Google in Pema Chodron and you will see umpteen million books that she's written. She's a real avatar in bringing Buddhist teachings in a very real Western way. And she's funny and she's very real, and it's really neat practice. And what I like about some of the teachings is that this one she called FEAR. So the acronym was FEAR, and these different letters stand for something. And the whole idea is that emotions need to be felt to some degree. Now, the intensity of it and the duration of it is individual. Sometimes you need to just touch in and feel it and then come back out of it so that you don't feel overwhelmed by it. Sometimes you can stay with it a little bit longer. This exercise brings you back to trying to feel and just stay with sensation. Because the problem is that we get caught up with, when we get sensation, our brain kicks in and then it ties into a story. And the story builds everything up into something more. And then that becomes almost impossible to work with. So what we're trying to work with is that first trigger of sensation. And if we can stay with sensation and let that run its course, it does run its course. The feeling starts to run its course. So in this exercise called FEAR, the F stands for feel it in your body. So you make the sensation. So for example, say I'm feeling worried. Okay, say the sensation is worry. So the first thing I'm going to do is go, okay, what am I actually feeling? So I slow things down, or maybe I do a bit of a walking meditation in the park where I just slow things down and then I start to ask what I'm feeling and where I'm feeling it. And so I might say, okay, well, where am I feeling this sensation of worry? Right away I might get an inkling that it's around my solar plexus. And I might feel like this butterflies in my stomach, or I feel maybe a little bit of heaviness in my chest. Sometimes maybe it's tension. I feel achiness in my shoulders. I feel heaviness in my arms. I might just go through and I'm being very inquisitive and curious as to what sensation, how does this feeling of worry show up in my body? What does it feel like? And then the E stands for embracing that feeling. Because a lot of times we don't like the sensation of it, and that's usually what causes us to distract, or it causes us to make it even more and get into the storyline that's connected to it. But the goal is to just feel it in your body and then welcome it in with open arms. Which sounds kind of funny because a lot of times we don't like these sensations, but we have to go through it. We really do have to go through these sensations in order to get to the other side. And embracing the feeling then is sort of openly and willingly allowing yourself to go into it with a mindset that's curious. And that's really important, because when you're curious, you're not so scared anymore. You're not so worried. You're more curious as to, how does this show up in my body? What else? What else is there? What else is there? That's the kind of questions you're asking yourself. Now, remember that when you start to feel this sensation, which your body has usually been accustomed to for a long time, but maybe hasn't sat with it in this way before, that sensation triggers thoughts. There's a storyline that goes with how our body feels. And so the A stands for allow the thoughts to dissolve. So you might first get this feeling of worry, right? And you're describing what it feels like inside the body physically. But then what will happen very quickly is the brain will sort of go, oh, right, well, I'm worried because of this and this and this, and then this might happen, and then, oh my gosh, and then what's going to happen after this? And you're already down the rabbit hole, and you've just caused this ember of a sensation to now become a bigger forest fire that's a lot harder to put out. So you have to keep reminding yourself, whoa, that's thinking. I'm not thinking right now. I am only going to feel. I'm just feeling sensation. I'm not thinking. Come back to feeling. What am I feeling? What is my body feeling like? And sometimes when you're doing a bit of a walking meditation, meaning like go for a walk in the park. Maybe if you can, it's a clean park, take your shoes off and walk on the grass and just feel the grass on your feet. Like get grounded, more present, and then keep coming back to sensation of what this is like. And then if you can stay with these sensations long enough, often they start to dissolve. Now, how the Buddhist teachings would talk about, they would say that if you stay with these sensations of discomfort, they naturally transition into feelings of openness, awareness, and warmth. And I've experienced that firsthand, where if I've stayed with it long enough without making it anything else, they automatically just kind of change. It's like the neuropeptides get burnt up and they dissolve. And Dr. What's her name? Dr. Bolt Taylor, who wrote A Stroke of Insight, she talked about the neuropeptides, and she said that ultimately it takes about 2 minutes for the neurochemistry of emotions to dissolve and move on. But most of the time, because we keep thinking about it, we keep re-triggering the process over and over and over again, so we never allow them to really let go. And so if we can feel it in the body and stay with the sensation without making it anything else, think of it like a really simple ember that if you didn't blow on it, if you didn't add anything to it, it would just dissolve out on its own. That's what we're trying to do with emotions. And then once it kind of dissolves, then the R is to remember the millions of others going through similar experiences. And what I think is unique, or I think what is really neat about this, is that we're all, if you're human, you're going to go through suffering. We all will. And when we go through some sorts of suffering, we tend to feel like we're alone in it and that it's all encompassing. And what's important to remember is that even if it's intense for us, it doesn't necessarily mean it's completely unique, that we all go through it. And to know that other people are going through it as well, there's something about that that just sets a little bit of ease for us, knowing that we're not alone in these things. And often what makes me feel like is it's almost like I can take one for the team. I think of it a little bit like if I'm going through this and if I can get through it and come out the other side, I feel like I'm setting something out there for others that it can be possible, even if that's just purely on an energetic plane. So that's the practice, and I think when you start with little ones. Don't start with the biggest stressor that you've got, like you've got a huge stressor with your partner or with your parents, or a big financial stressor or something like that. That just might be too intense right off the bat. So what you would be better off to start with would be maybe little ones, like when you're lined up in a line and it's taking a little bit longer than it should to get your coffee in the morning. And so you're starting to feel impatient or a little bit irritable. Or someone cuts in front of you in traffic. Well, maybe that's not a good one to start with because sometimes that can be a pretty intense one for people. But I usually think start with minor irritabilities and minor impatiences. So you build some spiritual muscle to be able to handle the big ones. Because it's practice. As you practice it, you start to get better with it. As you get better with it, you can take on more. And then eventually what happens is the big stressors hit and you don't go down the rabbit hole as nearly as fast and you can deal with them a lot better.